to keep on top of their agenda. Uh, Again, data protection and security, data management is not one simple product conversation. It includes a holistic approach. You can't isolate this discussion from the entirety of your IT environment and IT strategy. This is very important when you are looking at rolling out your data management strategy. Now, similarly, hybrid platforms necessitate a comprehensive approach that encompasses governance, compliance, application security, cybersecurity, and more. So your traditional backup architectures can no longer meet the demands of those moving to the cloud. So it's very clear that your data management going forward really has to keep the multi-cloud environment in mind when you're designing your strategy. Modernizing infrastructure will provide increased application security and availability. And last but not the least, modernizing data management will simplify and accelerate hybrid cloud adoption and consumption. So in effect, operating in an increasingly heterogeneous and hybrid environment requires next generation of data management capabilities that increase data availability, portability, and extensibility for cloud management. So with that, I don't want to take more time and would rather let our expert talk in more detail about how next generation data management can actually help in powering your business transformation. And so for that, I would like to invite our expert, Vishal Gupta, Senior Systems Engineer for Veeam. So over to you, Vishal.
Hi, thanks, Shipra, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vishal Gupta. I work in the pre-sales team in Veeam. Been with Veeam for the last 3 years in the data protection industry for the last 15 years. While I'm talking, I'm just trying to share the deck. So just bear with me for a second. Okay, here we go. So yes, so today we are going to talk about Veeam platform, Veeam product portfolio, and more importantly, our latest and the greatest release yet, which is called version 10. So as you can see on the screen, uh, it's called Veeam Availability Suite version 10. So we are going to talk about some of the main features, some of the flagship features which were most awaited, and we have been working on these features and functionalities integrations for quite some time. So we are going to talk about that. And before we talk about version 10 in specific, I just want to give an overall view about Veeam as a product, as a software, the portfolio, the base engine, the platform. Uh, for those who are not aware of the portfolio and the Veeam platform, so it's really about cloud data management or the data management as a whole. The backup recovery and replication is one part of it, and Veeam as a product, Veeam as a company has evolved so much in the last 12 years. Apart from the basic backup recovery and replication, we are able to stretch ourselves. We are able to introduce various platforms, various services within our portfolio. So as you can see, not only the on-premises infrastructure, whether it's the traditional server storage, VMware Hyper-V environment, it could be a hyper-converged sort of platform. It could be a hybrid cloud arrangement. It could be the public hyperscalers. Uh, in today's world, the workloads can really be running anywhere, in a hybrid on-prem public, in a service provider arrangement. The main thing is, do you have a single pane of glass management to protect all these heterogeneous types of workloads, and still be very sure, still be very confident about the recovery of your workloads, still be very confident about meeting the RTOs, RPOs, and various SLAs. So Veeam does that. We have been doing it successfully over the last 12 years. You know, whether it is virtual, platforms spread across various leading hypervisors, or it could be the physical, platform, physical servers. Uh, Whether it is the endpoint or maybe SaaS-based applications like Office 365, something you are running in the cloud. Um, we not only provide the backup and recovery, the main data protection engine, but we could also orchestrate and automate these services around it, all these things from one single pane of glass. Some of the services, some of the things that are product specific. So there are various products in our portfolio which can be which can be run as a standalone platform, or you can have a suite or a bundle sort of product or a solution deployed, which can take care of all these things, namely backup and recovery, which is the primary pillar of the data protection, data management for any platform. Cloud mobility. If you're running a VMware VM on-prem today, you want to migrate it to the public cloud tomorrow, you should be able to do it from the data protection console. That would be so great. While you are at it, are you really monitoring and having a data analytics around it, whatever you are protecting, and the backups that you are creating, are you able to see through it? Do you have some data analytics going on, and can you make sense of the data that you are backing up? So we do that intelligent visibility. Orchestration automation. Are you able to run these DR drills to the other site, or do your DR plans are really up to date? All these things. Do you take a lot of days or weeks to do the DR drill documentation? We can take care of it. We can automate the entire DR drill. That is again part of our data protection, data management portfolio. Anything governance and compliance. Today, recovery is one thing, but you may need to retain your backups for the purpose of compliance, for long-term retention, maybe on-prem or maybe in the public cloud. Can you do that, and how effectively you do that? So all these things you can do from one base engine. So and that the what we call it as a Veeam availability platform. So that can be deployed on prem. That can be extend to a public cloud, or maybe in a service provider fashion. So that's about our Veeam data management platform and the product portfolio around it. But what the main focus of this webinar would be the version 10 and the features we have introduced in this version, which we are going to talk about. And these features are not simply a check in the box. We have really redefined these very popular, or these old technologies, and with the modern infrastructure, and uh, to make it more cloud ready. So I will categorize these features into three main categories here. As you can see, the number one is seriously powerful NAS backup. Now you all know, you must have heard about NAS backups or NDMP backups in the past. People have been doing NDMP backups since ages, and you know, it used to work fine, and then there's a whole explosion of data growth, especially around the unstructured data. So when you have terabytes and petabytes of unstructured data, how do you make sure that data is protected? How do you make sure uh, your you are able to meet the backup windows? The backup is able to complete in a particular backup window for this amount of data, and the technologies around it. So let's talk about the enhanced NAS backup. So uh, a lot of data protection vendors have already been doing NAS backup, and uh, it works fine when you have hundreds and millions of files on these objects, on these maybe on the NAS specific hardware, or maybe on a commodity based NAS hardware. You can back it up. Your backup would still work, but the problem is when you have to run the incremental backups. When you have to run these subsequent incremental backups, those incremental backups uh, time period, or the backup window is painfully large. It's painfully big. Your backup window can spill over from one day to maybe multiple days. So that's the problem. So you are not able to complete or take the backup of your NAS unstructured data in a timely fashion. So you have that problem, and then obviously the data, the number of objects will keep on growing. The file size would grow. You would have these requirements where you need to keep these backups for a very for longer periods, for the sake of compliance and audit. And definitely you wouldn't have so much visibility or oversight into those backups that you are creating. So Veeam's enhanced NAS backup would solve all these challenges. And how do we do that? That's uh, I'm going to discuss on this slide. So first of all, the source data, that the source NAS data that we treat, or we back up, we are pretty flexible in that. Like I said, uh, whether it is SMB protocol supported version 123, or NFS version 3 4.1. So your data can be presented on any of these two protocols. And if it, like I said, it could be a NAS specific hardware, NAS, a designated NAS hardware box, or it could be a commodity storage, with a low grade file system. And just when you're putting things together in a commodity box, we can still back it up. If it could even be a Windows file server, and we can, and you would agree with me, you all have these heavy, big Windows and Linux file servers where you have terabytes of data that you would always have difficulties protecting. You could have a 20 terabyte on a physical box. You could have more than 20 terabyte on an old Windows server, which you wouldn't really be able to back up in a traditional manner. So we support that as well through the NAS backup. So our NAS backup can be configured on a normal heavy, a big Windows or a Linux file server. Now, that's the flexibility we provide in terms of so not only we protect, or we are able to protect designated NAS boxes. The NAS backup technology, the NAS backup functionality would even work on a Windows file server or a Linux file server, supporting both the protocols. Now, how do we achieve super fast incremental backups? Now, all the a lot of other players in the same market, a lot of other softwares which provide NAS backup functionality, they have to scan the entire file system to be able to find or track those file changes. And then only the NAS backup would know which files have changed and needs to be backed up. So to do that, you would one would typically need to scan the entire file system to be able to track those changes. What we do differently here in the enhanced NAS backup, we keep a tracker. We call it changed file tracker or a changed file tracking technology. It is very similar to changed block tracking technology of VMware, CBT. We are calling it CFT in a NAS standpoint. So what we do, we just keep a tracker, this change file tracker on one of our proxy, or you can call it a repository cache, a repository on our file proxy. It's a small virtual machine or a Windows based component. And when you have to run an incremental backup for millions of files and for terabytes and petabytes of data, Veeam doesn't have to scan the entire file system. It simply talks to this tracker, and the tracker tells these are the files which got changed, and you need to back it up. That's all. So the incremental backups are unimaginably faster. So those are super fast, irrespective of the total amount of data which you have on the NAS box. So this is really a the latest tech or the innovative technology what we have come up with this version, which nobody does out there. And we have tested it extensively with, for example, we were able to take the entire backup of Wikipedia database, the incremental, in just 28 minutes. And that data was in petabytes. I don't remember the exact value, but that was in multi petabytes, and the incremental backup completed in flat 28 minutes. So that's how robust and strong this change file tracking technology is. Apart from that, uh, in case some of the files are being locked during the backup, we can always leverage our snapshot integration with the underlying storage. So we integrate with all the leading storage vendors, and we also have universal storage APIs through which we are able to integrate with any storage box out there. So we can leverage snapshot based backups and still be able to back up those files which are being worked upon by the users. We can have point in time backups or point in time copies of snapshot based backups, again coming out of our snapshot, the storage based integration with the leading storage vendors, and offload performance. So when we integrate with the storage vendor, the underlying storage, we could actually create these storage snapshots, and the backups would leverage these storage snapshots instead of file level backup. So you really have a zero or a very less impact on the actual production data, or the end user will not experience much of an impact during the backups. So all in all, this is really an awesome feature when it comes to performing NAS backup of your unstructured data, that everybody has the unstructured data, and can make your daily backups really fast and effective. And just want to touch upon the recovery options. Needless to say, from the entire backup, you would be able to perform the granular recovery for a single file or a point in time, and maybe the entire file share. So those are available right off the bat. The next feature we are going to talk about is the instant recovery engine, or what we call it, multi VM instant restore. Now, to understand this feature, we got to understand the challenges first, which comes with a typical recovery. For example, the first and foremost would be the very high RTOs, the recovery time objectives. So the whole essence of doing backups, the whole essence of doing daily backups or weekly backups or monthly backups, retaining them for days, months, weeks, years, is to be able to restore in the event of an outage. In the event of a disaster, you should be able to recover quickly. That's the whole point of taking backups. So if you are not able to meet your desired RTOs, there's no point of investing millions of dollars in the data protection tech. So yeah, the recovery speed has to be very very fast. It should not be dependent on the size of the backup that you are creating, or maybe the channel or the network, the underlying network. um, that's the main challenge. Then like I said, everybody has a very heterogeneous platforms nowadays. You have virtual workloads running on the virtual platform, then you have physical servers, endpoints, cloud workloads. So your data is basically lying scattered around various platforms. So wouldn't it be nice if you are able to back up all these different types of workloads and still be able to restore or spin up these workloads on a virtual platform, on a one single vSphere VMware platform, for example, converting or migrating your workload from one platform to another. So that's what we do with this feature. And what exactly it does is the instant VM recovery. Okay, so before we understand this slide, I just want to spend 1 minute on what the instant VM recovery is in Veeam software. So instant VM recovery is basically when you are creating backups of your virtual machines, be it VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix, AHV, anything. The backup file is lying on the backup storage in a compressed and a deduplicated format. And let's say that you are creating a backup for a for a 5 terabyte sized VM. And in a traditional recovery scenario, what you would do is that backup file will be uncompressed. That data needs to be rehydrated, and then you will basically transfer it to the production server on in your virtual environment, and then you will power it on. So the power on thing would come at the end when you basically rehydrate that and uncompress it, and then transfer it over the network, and then only you would be able to power it on. So that's your traditional way of recovering a VM. Instant VM recovery, on the other hand, would be able to power on your virtual machine without even uncompressing that backup file. Simply publishing or creating a logical pointer between the backup storage and the production, the virtual environment, and irrespective of the size of the virtual machine or the backup file, you are able to instantly power on the VM. So that's what instant VM recovery is all about. And we just went one step ahead in version 10. That is now what we have done is, or what we are allowing you to do is, uh, if you have an application stack, consisting of several VMs. Obviously, when you have an application, it might be living on a set of 10 VMs. Application server, database server, a web server, an AD server. So you can have various virtual machines acting as various acting as or providing different services. So even if you're able to recover one single VM instantly, your application is still not complete. So you do need to recover the whole stack, the whole group of VMs in one go. So that's what we allowed to do in this particular feature. You would be able to recover, or you would be able to perform the instant VM recovery of multiple VMs simultaneously. So that's what you would do. So you would no longer have to do one by one in a serial manner. So you can have tens of hundreds of thousands of VMs powered on in one go instantly. So that's what multi-VM instant recovery is about. The other aspect of this feature, what you're looking at the slide, is even if you're not backing up a virtual machine, even if you're backing up a physical server, for example, even if you're backing up a laptop, even if you're backing up a cloud VM, and you have all these backup files on, residing on the backup storage, you would be able to restore, or you would be able to perform an instant recovery of these different types of workloads as a virtual machine on a VMware platform. So, the line which is at the bottom, which says instantly recover multiple VMs from any VM backup to VMware vSphere simultaneously. So really gives you a whole lot of flexibility, and speeds up uh, the the re, uh, the recovery process, and really gives you a flexibility in the migration scenarios, in the migration use cases as well. The third feature is about storing or leveraging the cloud object storage and their retention log feature. So uh, you know you are doing backups, and the backups are going well, and you are successfully running backups and everything, you're running restores, but the the whole thing is still exposed to the outside world. It is still vulnerable to something like ransomware attacks. If your backup storage, which is, let's say, on which is located in on premises, it's still connected to the backup server, and your entire virtual infrastructure and the other network is also connected to this backup infrastructure, which is again, which is online, and which is exposed to the outer world. Now, the rule of the backup is, to have multiple copies of your backups at multiple locations to give that redundancy, or the universal 3-to-1 rule of backup. So, I mean, cloud object storage being a cheaper option, in the public clouds like S3 or Blob, that's a very good option of keeping backup copies in the public cloud, which is, no, I mean, which would still be connected to the on-premises, because those S3 buckets are still integrated, or still they are still connected within the backup server, and the credentials of the backup server are still cached on the backup server. But what we do is we can leverage the cloud object storage retention lock. When we are storing these backup copies in the cloud, um, now these retention locks are have a pretty solid use cases. Once you put that retention lock on the object storage, even the root user cannot would not be able to change or delete these backup copies, making them truly immutable. So you can have this immutability of backup copies when you leverage these cloud object storage on Amazon, AWS, IBM, Microsoft, etc. So since we have that integration with the retention lock technology of cloud object storage, we are able to basically secure, completely fence off your backup copies from any of these external attacks. So even you can put a retention on these backup copies for as long as you want, or it can also be retained indefinitely, for forever. So just because we have that integration, we are able to provide a very solid immutability for these backup copies. So that not only gives you an unlimited amount of capacity in the cloud, but gives you unmatchable security and peace of mind, that even though your entire site can be compromised with the ransomware encryption, your backup copies, the data is still safe in the cloud object storage. Now, these were the three main features which are very big in version 10, and the adoption rate is simply amazing. In addition to that, we have got some more small things, like we started supporting SAP workloads and the Oracle backups with the RMAN integration. Those types of backups have been enhanced further in this version 10. Uh, we are able to provide the Linux platform on the on one of our components. It's called Veeam Proxies. Earlier it was only Windows supported platform. Now you can create Veeam proxies on a Linux platform. And moreover, we are able to support, or we support, MySQL and Postgres databases with the granular recovery options. And the third one is again, basically mitigating these data loss gaps by offloading your backup copies in the cloud object storage. Over here, the first one we already talked about, in which any type of workload running on any type of platform can be recovered instantly on VMware vSphere. It's just amazing how the conversion happens and how fast that works. Then we also have the Oracle, a flexible Oracle recovery option, in which, imagine you are backing up the Oracle databases, and just for the testing and for T&D purposes, you just have to publish, or you can publish one of the Oracle databases directly from the backup file to the production Oracle database. uh, you know let's say, just for some testing purposes, the Oracle DBA requests you for a particular database. You can publish that without even without performing an actual restore. So you would be able to publish that database directly on the production Oracle server. And once your T&D work is done, you have two options. You can either export those changes to the actual production environment, or you can discard those changes, and the database will go back into the backup file. So just a flexibility to publish or export. It comes with the Oracle recovery. Then there are databases that are snap. This feature is again related to our integration with the storage snapshots. Since we have this since we are able to leverage storage snapshots for the backups now, with version 10, you will even be able to perform the transaction log backups when you are taking these snap only jobs. I mean, so there would be two types of backup jobs. One is your typical a standard backup job, in which you are basically storing, making a copy of your production data outside of the production system, storing it on a designated backup storage. Second would be, you just creating these taking these storage snapshots, and storing those storage snapshots on the storage box itself. What this storage integration does, these snapshots can be crack open, and you can recover individual file level items, or application level items. So basically, without even performing an actual backup job, you can take a snapshot on the storage, and you would still be able to perform a lot of types of recoveries from the Veeam console. Now imagine, from the same snapshots, from the same storage snapshots, you would still be able to perform the transaction log backups and recover even a one single database item out of it. So again, a lot of again, this is related to the faster recovery methodology of Veeam. And we're making things very easier for database of DBAs for Oracle, SQL, and the other databases. Then like I said, all the leading hypervisors are supported, and we have this strong integration with all these hypervisors, be it VMware Hyper-V or Nutanix AHV, that you are able to you would be able to create agentless backups of the AHV virtual machines, for example. So and then we also have the integration with Veeam, with Nutanix Mine, which is coming up. You can have a lot of insights, app to metal visibility into your NAS infrastructure, your VMware infrastructure, the backup infrastructure. So you can have all those intelligence right from the single console. with backup copies to the cloud, making use of your backups. For example, there's something called Veeam Data Labs, in which the huge amount of backups that you are making, you could leverage those backups, and making these virtual labs, basically publishing the virtual machines right from the backup files and give it to your TND guys to do some patching work or TND type of work. And when they are done, they can simply discard it and it'll go back into the backup file. So leveraging the already created backups, and not only using them in the event of a recovery, but you could always leverage all that data. The last is seal your data, save your money. Means you know if, even though when you're performing these backup copies to the cloud object storage, imagine the size of the backup file is 1 terabyte that you have offloaded to the S3, for example, but you only have to recover, let's say, 100 MB or 1 GB out of it. So the the integration is such, the technology is such, only the 1 GB will be downloaded from the cloud and not the entire 1 terabyte. So saving you a lot of bandwidth cost and storage space. So it's an intelligent way of offloading your data to the cloud and making backup copies which are absolutely immutable. This is the licensing slide. I thought of putting it in this deck, because with version 10, we have come up with a Veeam universal licensing, which is again just like we have been discussing. It is pretty much platform agnostic. The Veeam software is platform agnostic, hardware agnostic. So uh, any type of workload that you may have. It could be a virtual machine, it could be a physical server, endpoint, cloud, workloads, cloud VM, even the Oracle workloads, the SAP workloads, or maybe the file share, the NAS data. You only have one type of licensing. One, if you have that, so just an example, if you have 10 VMs, 10 physical server, 10 cloud VMs, and 10 of these applications, you simply have to add it up, and that's the equal number of licenses you need to procure. So you don't need to buy different licenses for modules, for different database modules, or for tape outs, or for cloud backups, or for different things. So it's one single universal license would work across all the platforms and all types of backups. So again, making life easier, and basically for the easier management for the licenses. So it is very, very portable, it is very, very flexible, even the licensing. So in summary, one single platform, I would again say, if you have a base engine, if you deploy Veeam one time, and you can keep on adding, you can keep on adopting different technologies, or different hardware, or maybe the different types of clouds. You never have to build anything from ground up, from scratch. You simply have, once you have the Veeam platform laid down, you simply have to enable these services on top of it. So once you have the Veeam backup and replication platform done, you can have all the other services or all the other products in the portfolio, which will be seamlessly integrated into the base engine. So that's the beauty of this platform. You never have multiple consoles, multiple servers to manage different platforms, different types of backups or recoveries. It's always one single pane of glass through which you would be able to manage all types of platforms, any cloud, any hypervisor, physical, virtual, NAS, everything. So that's what it says: one platform to help protect data across all the platforms. So I think that's what I have in this. Now I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vishal, and yes, we have quite a few questions that have been asked. So I'll take them up one by one. So there's a question from David Niyagam. Wants to know that from a Gartner report perspective, where do you stand amongst competition?
So we are in the leaders quadrant for the last 3 years, and our position is continuously notching up. So we are right there in the leaders, 3 years.
Okay, great. And so the next question is from Vikash Kumar, and he would like to know about the data deduplication on Veeam software.
Okay, very good. So the data deduplication and compression technologies are software based. So like I said, Veeam software is hardware agnostic. So we never require a specialized appliance to be able to provide you deduplication. It is very much software based, and it is inline deduplication that we provide, and it can work on any type of backup storage, on any commodity hardware, on any commodity based storage. So it's a software based dedupe and compression that we provide.
Okay, great. Another question related to compression and deduplication. So Srini wants to know that what is the compression and deduplication ratio in Veeam, and further to that, his question is the compression and dedupe will happen in backup agents or in backup servers before committing into storage?
Okay, so it is two-part questions. So the one part is um,
The
the
ratio, the what is the compression and deduplication?
ratio, the rate. It is it would always depend upon the type of data that you are backing up. But I can tell you, for the sake of sizing, that we do, and we do a pretty much conservative sizing, and we take around 35%. So for example, if you back up 100 GB, it would only save 35 GB. So that's what we take. But in the real scenario, it goes even more. So so even more than that. And the second part was where it happens. It happens on the backup server, or rather backup proxy, one of our components in our architecture. So it's inline. It can happen on the proxy. So now, having said that, even though I said we are a hardware agnostic, and we, as much as we like to do use a commodity based backup storage for the TCO purposes, we also have the integration with the deduplication appliances such as Data Domain, StoreOnce, or Exagrid, all these guys. So we do integrate with them, and whether it is DD Boost of Data Domain or Catalyst of HP StoreOnce, all these binaries are pre-built in the software. So if you want, I mean, if somebody already invested in these appliances, the Veeam software would still work with them, and you can choose to have your deduplication done wherever you want. If you want your dedupe to be done on the source side, you can leverage these technologies, or like DD Boost, or Catalyst, or the standard ones, which happens inline on the backup server, or maybe on the appliance itself. So again, flexible that way.
Okay. Kushore Kumar Das wants to know that what about backing of KVM virtual machines? How you are managing backups of containerized applications?
So okay, again, two things. So KVM and the other hypervisors, which are non VMware or non Hyper V, non AHV, we would be putting an agent inside the guest OS of these virtual machines, and still be able to back them up with the application consistency. And with the containerized applications, we can protect the underlying virtual machine data, and that's how we can provide the protection in a containerized environment.
Okay. There's a question from Deepak Birole. He wants to know that in the instant VM recovery, where the VMs are running from backup storage, will it be in read-write mode?
Yes. That's right. So when you perform the instant VM recovery, even though it is being published from the backup file, but you obviously you would be making those changes on the virtual machine. The transactions would keep on flowing, and all those changes will be recorded in our within our components, and then basically it would depend upon what you want to do with that instant VM recovery, whether you want to there would be two use cases. One would be you have a real disaster. The actual production VM has gone down, and you are doing an instant VM recovery, and instantly the VM is powered on. So you will keep that virtual machine, and whatever changes you are doing will be committed on the VM, and the backup file would still be there as per its date and time stamp. The second use case may be you just want to see uh, the VM from the backup file, and you just for the purpose of maybe you just want to check something. You got a request from a team member to check a file or check some service. You can still do an instant VM recovery, but you can simply power it off and discard all the changes, and send it back to the backup file. So different use cases, and both the things possible. But yes, the answer is those changes, those transactions will be recorded in our database, or in one of our components.
So Deepak Birola had another question. So he wanted to know, in instant recovery, is Veeam creating a copy of the backup file or opening the original backup files?
Opening the original backup file.
Okay. Okay. So there's another question from A. Saluja. To do this instant recovery for Oracle DB, are there any prerequisites?
uh, not really. It's just that whatever Oracle database you are working with, or the Oracle version, the database version that you want to publish to the target Oracle server, just make sure their version is same. That's it.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's none.
Mhm. And the next question is, what is the minimum hardware requirement for Veeam software?
The minimum is for example, I can give you for the Veeam backup server. Veeam backup server can have 4 cores uh, running on physical. If it is running on virtual, you can have 4 vCPU, and 8 or 16 GB of RAM, or minimum 8 GB of RAM would be sufficient with a Windows platform. So for the backup server, it has to be a Windows operating system.
Okay. Vikas wants to know that does Veeam has any mechanism to do dedupe of encrypted data backup?
Dedupe of encrypted data backup. Yeah, I mean, okay. So if I get that right, so if you have an encrypted data at the storage, at the primary storage level, yeah, you would still be able to deduplicate that. It might take a little longer for the backup to complete, but yes, it is possible.
Okay. The next question is from Hitesh. He wants to know that are we doing source or target site deduplication?
So this is the same question. I already answered that. If you're using Veeam with a commodity-based backup storage, it would always be inline deduplication. But if you use Veeam with a deduplication appliance, you can choose to have a source-based deduplication as well.
Okay. So Vishwalingam wants to know that he's saying that I am using raw device mapping concept in my Hyper-V environment, and I'm also planning to move some of the loads to cloud. Will Veeam support raw device mapping?
Yes, we do. The RDM disks basically cannot be snapshotted when it comes to the hypervisor, from the hypervisor point of view. So since there's a limitation from the hypervisor, we would rather put an agent inside the guest OS. And so the answer is we can still be able to back it up, and then send a backup copy to the cloud. we would not be able to take an image level backup, and nobody can, because the RDM, the nature of RDMs is such, these cannot be snapshotted. So we will have to take an agent level backup of such VMs.
Okay, this is another question from Asa Luja. He wants to know that does it support SAN-based transport method for a heavily sized VM?
Absolutely, it does.
Okay. This Srini wants to know that could you share the Veeam differentiators compared to the other vendors?
These are the what we talked about in the webinar. These are the differentiators, as per from the comparative technology. And there are a few more, like there's something called recovery verification. It's called sure backup and sure replica in Veeam, in which the backups that you are creating on the backup storage can actually be crack opened with the same technology which instant VM recovery uses. And you could actually run a series of tests on these backups, the virtual machines that you are backing up. And only after these tests are successful, it gives you a report saying that the recovery verification was indeed completed successfully. And the same report can be utilized for the purpose of compliance and audit. So nobody has that yet, and we have been doing that for many years now. So we could do that with the recovery verification report. We do that. And in multi VM instant recoveries that we have, the kind of integration that we have with various hypervisors or various storage vendors can really design your the whole data protection in such a way to really lower down your RPOs and RTOs without much complications. So it's easy to use. It's no command line. It's all GUI, so it's very easy to administer as compared to the other vendors. We have it's a proven technology. And we have a number of customer to speak for ourselves. We have got more than 3,70,000 paid customers who are enjoying Veeam, and we enjoy the NPS score of more than 74, which really shows the customer satisfaction and you know the overall effectiveness of the software.
Okay. There's a question from Vishnu Bonthu. He wants to know if Veeam backup is ready for Nutanix AHV VM application consistent backups or not.
Yes, it is absolutely. It is by far the robust integration that we have with the AHV platform. Whether it is and we have this integration at the API level. And again, with the Nutanix AHV, you never have to install the agents on the VMs, and yet you can carry out the application consistent backups of these VMs. So yes.
Okay. There's another question saying that can you explain about Veeam Universal License?
So yeah, sure. So it's a new licensing that we have come up with, and it is a subscription based licensing, first of all. And it is independent of the size, the capacity that you are backing up at the primary or at the secondary storage. It is independent of the platform uh, which you are protecting, virtual physical cloud endpoint. All you need to do is count the number of instances, the operating instances that you want to back up. So by operating instances, I mean to say, when it comes to virtual, you would count the number of VMs that you want to protect, irrespective of the storage, irrespective of the underlying hypervisor host, and everything. And when it comes to physical, you will count the number of physical servers, the operating instances, and so on and so forth. So it's an instance based licensing, in which we don't really care about what platform you know or what you want to do with your backups, whether you want to tape it out, whether you want to put it on the cloud. You get all the features, full-fledged anything and everything which Veeam has to offer. So there are no different editions or categories of feature sets. One license will include anything and everything, and all the platforms supported. So it's a uh, really a universal licensing for all kinds of workloads,
Right.
and it's portable also. For example, let's say you bought Veeam licenses for 50 VMs to backup, and tomorrow, out of those 50 VMs, 10 VMs got discarded, and you added instead 10 physical servers. So the same licensing will be applicable, or you will be able to use the same licenses on the physical servers. Let's say you want to migrate your virtual machines on-prem to the cloud VMs, and so the same license will apply to the cloud VM. So you never have to call up the licensing, or call us up by doing some changes, or doing some complicated conversion things. So it's very, very straightforward, easy, flexible, portable licensing what we have introduced.
Okay. Yeah. So, in fact, while you were answering the question on the licensing, there was a question from Sivaraman saying that Veeam license is capacity based or instance based. So, I think we've already answered that. Um,
Yeah.
so, there's a question from Hitesh who wants to know how encryption works on backup in case of any ransomware attack and how it will protect backup.
So encryption and ransomware would be, two different things. Encryption is so what we do is you can encrypt your backups, at the uh, backup level. So for example, when you back up the data in the form of VMs, or servers, or whatever, you can put an encryption, and we use AES 256 AES encryption, which is the highest level of encryption. But the encrypted backups can still be locked, can be attacked by the ransomware attacks. So um, the encryption in the immune to the ransomware attacks. To protect against something like ransomware, like we discussed in the webinar, you have that retention lock feature of the object storage, which you could leverage. So once you make the backup copies of your data into the cloud object storage, and have that retention lock in place, your backups are protected, whether they are encrypted or not.
Okay, so I think we are running out of time, but I just want to take one or two last questions. So there is a question asking, can we use Veeam for building a web-based backup product as a SaaS model for the market? If yes, then what's a minimum system requirement for that?
That would depend upon what exactly you are trying to do. So we do have, all the Veeam APIs, all the products APIs are exposed to the REST APIs. So you can use these REST APIs and integrate it with any SaaS-based platform, or maybe any other third-party tool, and you could leverage that. And the system requirements would differ from requirement to requirement. What exactly you are trying to do, what all you want to protect, the number of workloads, the size of data, the change rate, retentions, platform. So it would vary, but the answer is yes. You can play with the REST APIs. A lot of our customers have done that. They are leveraging REST APIs to integrate Veeam data protection technology with a lot of third-party tools like monitoring, or maybe cloud-based, and maybe their ticketing system and stuff. So you can use that.
Okay, so maybe we can take a one last question. So this is a question from Rahul Shinde. He's asking how it's cost effective from Azure backup to Veeam.
Well, I can't comment on that. Azure backup. So again, it would depend upon what the requirement is. It's all about the value proposition, the value uh, which a customer see in a given solution, in a given requirement. If we are able to provide that value, if we are able to meet the requirement in an effective manner to the customer's satisfaction, the cost would be secondary. And I'm sure um, with the Veeam universal licensing, we are pretty competitive with the other vendors.
Okay, great. I think, Vishal, we have kind of covered almost all the questions. I am sorry in case something got left out, but you can always reach back to us in case you have any further questions later on as well. And I believe some of you wanted to know if you can get a demo for VM recovery. So I think some of you have already received the email ID from wherein you can write for more details about it. Also, you will have a feedback form which you will get when you log out. Please do fill up that feedback form. And in case you want to get back in touch with Veeam or us for any further details, please feel free to do that. So thank you so much, Vishal. Anything that any one or two key takeaways that you want to summarize with as we end it?
Yeah, that's fine. So thank you so much, everyone who has joined, who took time from their schedule from in the middle of the day. So thank you so much. I just want to end on a note saying that if any of these features that we discussed, if you find these features relevant to your current requirements, or do you really think that we can help you, optimizing any of these challenges that we discussed, please feel free to reach out to me or Shipra, or us, and we would be happy to engage and happy to help you out. So thanks again. You have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vishal. And thank you all of you for attending the webinar as well as for your questions. I hope most of your questions were answered. Like I said, you can get back to us with more questions. And with that, thanks once again and have a great day. And thank you so much once again. Bye.